HOSTON E21 NC programmable controller. We are currently in the single cycle manual mode. When you hit the stop button, you can make program changes. X and Y are the actual positions. X at 3.62 is where the X-axis or the back gauge is currently sitting. Y at 3.624 is where the Y-axis RAM up and down is currently positioned. XP and YP is where you can actually tell the X-axis back gauge or the Y-axis RAM to go to. So if I was to change XP to 5 inches, I would type in 5, enter. You'll see it on the screen. Hit the go button and you will now see the back gauge move. It's now at 5 inches. The same holds true for the Y-axis. If we manually change the Y-axis, the 3.7, we will see the Y-axis change. We won't notice the change until we actually start to do our bends. By changing the Y-axis to different points, 3.7, 3.5, 3.8, 4, etc., that will adjust what depth our RAM will come down. That is how we're going to set our degree of angle bends. Once we profile these bends, we will then know what degree we want to achieve, and we can use that number for future reference. Other features of this controller are the DX, which has to do with the retract feature. If you want the back gauge to retract after making a bend, you can put in how many inches you want to do that. If you're making a complicated bend where the piece might hit something, then this might be a feature you want to use. The HT is the hold time. This is the number of how many seconds do you want to hold in the bottom of the bend, so like a dwell time. The more you dwell, the less spring back you will take, or the more spring back you'll take out of the piece. So the longer that you make the bend in the bottom of the bend will eliminate your spring back. This is a trial and error process. The delay time is how long do you want the back gauge to hold in its current position before it retracts. In this case, we have it set for ½ an inch. We are currently not doing any bends that need that feature. The PP is how many pieces are you bending, the number of pieces you want to bend, and the CP is it's just counting the pieces already bent. So once you do all this profiling, you can then go into the programming mode and make a program you can tell it how many steps do you want your program to have, whether it's 2 or 25, you'd put that in there. How many pieces do you want to make, 1 or 10 or whatever you want to make. The CP is just the count. The delays are just going back to the delays we already talked about for back gauge ranges. Arrow over. The X and the Y is currently where everything is sitting. The XP is where you want your back gauge to go for each one of the steps. The YP we talked about where you want your Y-axis to go. This would be again for your retract feature. The RP is going to be how many times you want to repeat that particular bend. And then you can do the same thing for each step. And you'll see the step going after each one. To get out of all that, we're just going to go back to our programs. And in this case, I made a program in program number 1. We're going to enter that. It's 2 steps. We're just going to do a 45 degree and a 90 degree bend that I kind of already profiled a little bit using some 16 gauge and some 12 gauge mild steel. First piece we have here is some 16 gauge. In my program over here we have 2 steps, just we're going to make 1 piece each as we go through it. Step number 1, we have the back gauge set on the XP at 2. We have the RAM set at 3.625. No retract features are needed. This should give us about a 45 degree bend. In the case of the way that this machine thinks, it's going to be 135 degrees for that bend. The next step is going to go to 3.850, which at 12 gauge comes out to be about a 90. See, it's getting to start the program. The back gauge is moving in. Our Y-axis is set, our back gauge and Y-axis are set. We will now step on the pedal and make this bend. And you will see we have about a 45 or 135, depends on which way you think about it. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but that's about where we are, give or take. We are now going to be doing step 2 of 2, which is our 90-degree bend, using the 12 gauge. And you'll see from there we have a pretty good 90. Once again, kind of hard to do with one hand. This machine also has light curtains. So if we go back and reset the program, you'll see it's now going back to start at step number 1, which is our 45 degree. Ready for step number 1 again. Of course, if I put my hand by the light curtains and step on the pedal, nothing works. Once I pull my hands away, now going back to step 2 again. Going from a 45 to a 90. And we're back to our program again.